Some of my patients were telling me back in Michigan that they were getting their medical marijuana cards. And as a nurse, I was reluctant to chart that in their charts. I didn't want the patient to get in any kind of trouble. A lot of times I would just kind of tell the doctor during our case conferences that this patient's using medical marijuana. But once I started seeing patients actually getting their cards, there was kind of some talk about it for a while. Once they started getting their cards, I actually started charting this because I realized that one of the things that we were missing in medicine with medical marijuana was any kind of data. And the thing that I have that I think that on the panel that nobody else maybe has is that I've been in contact with patients for 3 years now, medical marijuana patients specifically, and I've heard all of their stories, and we've seen some of the sickest people that there are, especially here in Chicago. And so we have a lot of people that are desperate to try something. And so a lot of you won't see these people over and over like we do, in and out the door constantly, very ill people. You may have one or two once a week, but we see them all the time. So for us, the stories that come into Good Intentions are extremely dramatic and hard to forget, and that just helps us be stronger advocates. So in Michigan, after I saw that patients were starting to use it, I decided that maybe I would open a dispensary. There was a place in my hometown in Saugatuck that I thought would be perfect for it. I was actually going to apply at a dispensary in Holland, Michigan, not far from where I live, and they were running into some issues with the city, zoning stuff, which will happen here in Illinois, and it's already happening. Every municipality is going to zone where they want these dispensaries or these cultivation centers. And so they were having some zoning problems in Holland, and so the dispensary that I was applying at wasn't hiring, so I decided that I would open my own dispensary. So I opened my dispensary, and we started seeing patients right away. And having the background that I do as a registered nurse, I felt really comfortable helping people get this medicine and even giving it to them, dispensing it to them. We were, at the time, Michigan doesn't have any dispensary provisions in the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, which was a voter referendum. So unlike Illinois, in Michigan, it was the voters of Michigan who decided to write this law and vote on it and pass it. Here, it was through the government. So we didn't have dispensaries written into the law in Michigan. So dispensaries were opening and all over Michigan. It wasn't a proliferation of them. In some cities there were more, like Ann Arbor or Lansing. There were more, but they weren't everywhere. There weren't too many of them. But the state started. There was a Court of Appeals ruling then on a dispensary. One dispensary, got in trouble for kind of the way that they were doing things. The people were arrested. It went to court. There was a Court of Appeals ruling that closed dispensaries. So once it makes it to the Court of Appeals level, it's law. We closed our dispensary. We opened back up a little while later, just a couple weeks later after my attorneys and I kind of looked at the rules. We weren't open very long, and then the state of Michigan came to me with a cease and desist to close the dispensary, but also a cease and desist on my nursing license because there was a conflict between dispensing a controlled one substance and being a registered nurse. So I opted to just not renew my nursing license. I closed the dispensary, but I knew that half the people that were coming into the dispensary were looking for to get a medical marijuana card, but to have a doctor that could help them. So I reached out to my friend, Dr. Brian Murray, and he has a license in Illinois and in Michigan. He had a practice in Michigan. And we started seeing patients at the Good Intentions Clinic. And we started out slow, and every couple weeks Brian would come into town and we would see patients. And at the time, the laws in Michigan weren't as strict as they are now. Now they have some provisions for reviewing medical records and things, but at the time we were just able to meet patients, and then based on what they were telling us, Brian would write the recommendation if he thought it was appropriate. So we were doing that in Michigan, and then we knew, and we were going along for a year and a half or so, and then we knew that Illinois was about to pass the law, and Brian lives here. So we decided that we would come to Illinois and start helping patients here. We knew that there was going to be a need here just like there is in Michigan. And in Michigan, it was every few weeks that we were seeing patients, so it wasn't every day, it wasn't hundreds of people, like some people might think. it was more like 30 patients or so in a very long, full day. But we knew there was going to be a need here in Illinois, so we opened up the Good Intentions Clinic. We weren't quite prepared for the response that we got. We had some great PR and marketing, and so there was a huge, overwhelming response. One of the downsides of that response is immediately we had the IDF PR, the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, in the office to kind of investigate things. So there was an internal complaint, and they did their investigation. We had to have all of our attorneys involved, and we have lots of attorneys because of what we do. So our attorneys answered their questions, and then some of you may have heard just back in December of last year, the state of Illinois is actually suing Dr. Murray for his work with medical marijuana patients. And we're still in the process of dealing with that. The reason I bring that up is because that has ramifications for all doctors who want to help their patients. The state of Illinois just released some rules for the program, and our company is addressing those rules. Our Thomas Jefferson Project, our advocacy group, is looking at those rules, and we've just submitted our response to the rules because the state of Illinois did leave it open for public comment on the rules. So that's what we've done. But doctors are, the state of Illinois is really trying to avoid these mills where there's tons of patients coming in, seeing a doctor that they've never met, the doctor's writing this recommendation. And that's a legitimate concern, although in Michigan, there wasn't all kinds of rogue doctors around doing this. I don't think many doctors, want to go out on the line after all the years that they put into what they do, to risk it for medical marijuana. So there weren't all kinds of rogue doctors, but that's the concern, and that seems that that's what the laws are written about is making sure that these kinds of doctors aren't out there. The problem that presents, though, is that it's doctors need to be able to specialize in something, and so if we tell doctors that they can't see patients for the sole purpose of writing marijuana recommendations, then we're essentially not allowing a doctor to get good at what he or she does. So that's part in our rules. That's part of the thing that we're addressing is where patients are going with, or where doctors are going to be able to go with these recommendations that they're writing. So, yeah, we have our clinic, and I guess I'll let you ask some questions after that. I tend to drone on because there's like a million things up here about the subject. So, I'll answer questions.